What's good, YouTube? This is your girl T-Dot, and I know you're probably wondering, where's your beautiful face, T-Dot? Why aren't we seeing that beautiful smile? Well, today I decided I wasn't going to show my face because I really wanted to get this video done. That way I could post it before the game started. By games, I mean March Madness. As you can see from the title of the video, I'm going to give you all my predictions for each round leading up to the national championship game and who I think is going to be the national champion this year. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to go by each region and pick up to the Final Four, and then, obviously go into the Final Four and pick that way. So let's get started with the South. We've got the 1-16 matchup, Virginia versus UMBC. I'm going to go with Virginia just because no one seed has ever been beaten by a 16 seed. So spoiler alert, that's what's going to happen for all the 1 seeds. I have all of them going through to the next round. But because we're just in the South, let's just go ahead and move on to the next matchup. The 8-9 matchup between Creighton and Kansas State. I went to high school in Omaha, Nebraska, so I've got some steak in Omaha. Get it, steak in Omaha, Omaha steaks. If you didn't know, now you know, Omaha is known for their steaks. I have some ties to Omaha, so I'm going to go with Creighton on this one, and that's my logic because I found it difficult to really choose between the two teams. Alright, next matchup, 5-12 matchup. I've been doing brackets for so long, so I know that the 5-12 matchups are more likely to be upsets. That's just how it has been in the past. So I'm going to go with Davidson over Kentucky for this matchup. Moving on to 4-13, Arizona versus Buffalo. I'm going to go with Arizona on this one. I didn't really think this would be an upset. I just didn't have a feeling in my gut about that. Moving on to the 6-11 matchup, we've got Miami versus Loyola Chicago. I had to say that very delicately because that's a hard word to say. But I choose Loyola to beat Miami in this game and go on to the second round. Next matchup, we've got 3-14, Tennessee versus Wright State. Wright State is here in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is where I'm at. But I'm not going to choose them to beat Tennessee. I just don't have a good feeling about that. So yeah, I got Tennessee moving on to the next round. Next matchup, 7-10, Nevada versus Texas. I've got Texas upsetting Nevada here. And then the last matchup for round 1 in the South, I've got Cincinnati going to the second round over Georgia State. Alright, so now we're moving on to the round of 32. Based off of my previous picks, we've got Virginia versus Creighton here. I choose Virginia to go on to the next round. Next matchup is Davidson and Arizona, and I choose Arizona for this one. I only think Davidson has 1 in them. Plus, statistically, in the past, not very many 12 seeds go on to win their second game in the tournament. Next matchup is Loyola versus Tennessee. I've got Tennessee moving on to the next round on that as well. And then the next one, Texas, Cincinnati. I've got Cincinnati moving on to the Sweet 16. So, speaking of that, now we're at the Sweet 16. Let's go first matchup, Virginia, Arizona. And I have Virginia winning, of course. Next matchup is Tennessee, Cincinnati. And I've got Cincinnati beating Tennessee. I feel like Cincinnati's going to pull that win. We're moving on to the Elite 8 with Virginia versus Cincinnati, and I am going bold with this one, and I'm going to say Cincinnati beats Virginia and goes on to the Final Four. Now we're going to move on down to the West. So the first pick is Xavier, obviously. I mean, as I said before, no 1 seed has lost to a 16 seed, so I don't even care if it's Texas Southern or North Carolina Central because it doesn't matter. Xavier's going to win. 8-9 matchup, Missouri versus Florida State. I got Mizzou going on to the next round for this one. Moving right along, we've got the 5-12 matchup in Ohio State and South Dakota State. I know I've been picking Ohio teams, but this time I'm not going to go with an Ohio team. I'm going to go with the upset here with South Dakota State moving on to the round of 32. 4-13 matchup, we've got Gonzaga versus UNC Greensboro. I'm going to go with Gonzaga on this one. Next matchup, we've got 6-11 Houston versus San Diego State. I'm calling an upset here. I'm going to call San Diego State moving on to the next round. Moving along to the 3-14 matchup, I've got Michigan beating Montana. Next matchup is the 7-10 matchup with Texas A&M versus Providence, and I'm going to go with Providence. In the last matchup in the round of 64 for the West, we have North Carolina and Lipscomb. I really don't know how to say that name, and I'm happy I don't have to say it anymore because I have UNC going on to the next round. So that's the first round for the West. Moving on to the round of 32, Xavier versus Mizzou. I've got Xavier moving on to the next round, no shocker there. In the next matchup, South Dakota State versus Gonzaga. I have Gonzaga beating the Jackrabbits. Is that what South Dakota State's logo is, I believe? You'll see if I'm right or wrong in the video. Next matchup, San Diego State versus Michigan. I have Michigan beating San Diego State. And then the last matchup for the round of 32, I've got Providence versus UNC. UNC beating Providence, unfortunately. Next round, Sweet 16, we've got Xavier versus Gonzaga. I've got Xavier moving on. Not a big shocker there. Xavier is a solid team. They've been ranked all season. And I came to Ohio because of Xavier. Went to grad school there. So, I got some ties to Xavier, and I think it would be really interesting to see them move on. Next matchup, Michigan versus UNC. Unfortunately, I have UNC moving on to the next round. I know, sad story, but it doesn't stay sad for too much longer because I have Xavier beating UNC in the Elite Eight, moving on to the Final Four. And yes, that does mean that we have Cincinnati versus Xavier in the Final Four. I mean, how entertaining is that? You know what I'm saying? That's going to be an amazing game. Crosstown Classic. I think that's what it is. Crosstown Classic Part 2 for all the people in Cincinnati, Ohio. A lot of entertainment for that. So let's move on to the right side of the bracket. The 1-16 matchup in the East. Shocker, big shocker. I'm choosing Villanova. Next matchup, 8-9, Virginia Tech versus Alabama. I've got Virginia Tech moving on. Next matchup, 5-12, West Virginia versus Murray State. I'm going to go West Virginia on here. They've got a great coach, and I think that they can pull off that win. 4-13 matchup, Wichita State versus Marshall. Going with Wichita State in this one because Wichita State has consistently been a pretty good team in the tournament. They've gotten at least 2 rounds. So I'm going to go with them for that one. Next matchup, 6-11, Florida versus St. Bonaventure or UCLA. I don't know which one yet because I'm doing this Tuesday before the games. I'm busy for the rest of the week, so I want to get this done now. But I don't think it matters because I think Florida, whichever team wins, I think Florida can hold their own and move on to the next round. So I'm going to go with Florida right there. 3-14 matchup, Texas Tech versus Stephen F. Austin. I'm going to go with Stephen F. Austin for this one. They're a good team when it comes to the tournament. They know how to play hard and leave it all on the court. I was there for the VCU game 2013 when they hit that buzzer beater and won the game. That was an amazing moment, and I believe in them since that game. So I'm going to go with Stephen F. Austin for the upset. Next matchup, 7-10, Arkansas Butler. I'm going to go with Arkansas for the win on this. And then the last matchup for the first round in the East, we've got Purdue versus Fullerton. I'm going to go with Purdue. That's the first round in the East. Let's move on to the second round. Villanova versus Virginia Tech. I've got Villanova going on. I just think they're the better team. So, next matchup, West Virginia versus Wichita State. I've got Wichita State beating West Virginia on this one. Florida versus Stephen F. Austin. I got Florida moving on to the next round. Arkansas, Purdue. I've got Purdue moving on to Sweet 16. So next round, Sweet 16, I've got Villanova beating Wichita State. I've got Purdue beating Florida and moving on to the Elite Eight. And then I've got Villanova beating Purdue to move on to the Final Four. So for the third year in a row, they're back in the Final Four, according to my predictions. Now we're going to move on to the Midwest. And the first matchup, Kansas versus Penn. I'm going to go with Kansas. You know my reasoning, so no need to say it again. Next one is 8-9 matchup, Seton Hall versus NC State. I've got Seton Hall moving on. They've been ranked for the majority of the season, if not the whole season, I think. And so I just feel like they're the better team. Next matchup, 5-12 matchup, Clemson versus New Mexico State. I predict another upset. And New Mexico State moving on to round 2. Next, we have number 4 Auburn versus number 13 seed Charleston. I've got Auburn moving on to the next round for that one. And this next one, the 6-11 matchup, TCU versus either Arizona State University or Syracuse. I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. I'm going to choose Syracuse to beat Arizona State. I think that's how the game's going to go. And then I think that Cuse could beat TCU. So I'm going to say Syracuse beats TCU in this case. Next, we got the 3-14 matchup, Michigan State versus Bucknell. And I've got Michigan State going on to the round of 32. Next, we got Rhode Island versus Oklahoma, 7-10 matchup. I believe in Trae Young. I believe in him. And I think he can push Oklahoma into the next round. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma with the upset over Rhode Island. And then the final and most anticipated matchup of the first round, Duke versus Iona. And we've got Duke going into the round of 32. And if you thought I was going to choose Iona, you are sadly mistaken. And you need to go watch more of my videos on my channel, because then you would know I'm a Duke fan. That's the end of the first round in the Midwest. We're going to move on to the round of 32. Kansas versus Seton Hall. I got Kansas going on to the next round. New Mexico State versus Auburn. Auburn is winning that game, in my opinion. ASU/Cuse versus Michigan State. I've got Michigan State moving on to the next round. And then Oklahoma Duke. Sorry, Oklahoma. You know, I used to live in Oklahoma. I got family in Oklahoma. I got some strong ties to Oklahoma. But I have even stronger ties to Duke. So we're going to go with Duke going on to the Sweet 16. Speaking of which, the next matchup, the Sweet 16 matchup in Kansas and Auburn. I've got Kansas moving on to the next round. Shocker there. And then, even bigger shocker, I've got Duke beating Michigan State and going on to the Elite Eight. Now, this is a tough one. If I choose Duke, everyone's going to think I'm choosing Duke because I love them, you know? Which they wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be wrong. But I also wanted to look at this objectively. Could Duke beat Kansas? Now, obviously, I did choose Duke to move on to the Final Four. But if Duke played Duke basketball, I think they could beat Kansas. Now, I understand our defense hasn't been great, but that's because these guys haven't really locked in together on the defensive end. They've done it a few games, but they haven't really done it consistently as of late. I think they can do it. I think they can pull it off. And I believe in this Duke team. So we're going to the Final Four. That brings us to the next part of this bracket. All the regions are done. Now we're moving into the Final Four. And we've got Cincinnati versus Xavier and Villanova versus Duke. So, are you ready for the results? Can I get a drum roll, please? The national championship game in San Antonio, Texas on April 2nd on TBS. Xavier versus Duke. I understand this is more entertaining for me than anyone else. So, you know, everyone watching this probably think that I'm stupid or crazy for picking Xavier and Duke to be in the championship game, but I don't care. Moving on to the actual national championship winner, I think you all know who I'm going to choose for this. I don't think it's a surprise. You probably knew right away from the beginning who I was going to choose to win it all. But I am choosing Xavier to win it all. No, I'm just playing. I'm choosing Duke to win it all. I'm not choosing Xavier. That was just a joke, everybody. A joke. Duke wins it all. They win their 6th national championship. But yeah, those are my picks for the tournament. I know a lot of you would disagree with them. Some of you might actually agree with them. Some of y'all might be intrigued and actually want to have a conversation with me about what I chose. So if you are one of those 3 people, go ahead and hop in the comment section and let me know what you decided for the matchups. That's all I have for this video. If you liked it, go ahead and smash that like button, and if you didn't, go ahead and smash the like button, and then as a compromise, put all your dislike feelings in the comment section instead. How about that? I also want you to, in the comment section, tell me if you want me to make a video like this each week as a little update, going back to my bracket and, crossing out who I got wrong and who I got right, and then, maybe we can make some predictions based off how the tournament is going so far as well. And also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell right beside it. That way you're notified every single time I upload a new video. But yeah, that's all I've got. So until the next video, peace.